Recording?
Yep.
All right, episode 173 with Josh Turner. For me, one of the best voices ever in country music. And I'm not joking about that. To me, I don't know if there's not a lot of other people I'd rather listen to sing country music than you. So for me, and I grew up listening to your music, this is one of the most excited podcasts I've had probably.
Yeah, definitely one of the ones that I think we've been more excited for compared to some others. And also one of the best beards in country music right now. I mean,
I feel like we had to kind of do our part a little bit. Got a little chest throw going here. Got to be men.
Yeah, it was a lot thicker for when I did the photo shoot for this current record and all of that, the video and all that. But I'll grow it out, and then I can only take it for so long, and then I'll trim it back, and then it'll grow out again because I'm too lazy to trim it on a weekly basis. So
What does your wife think of it? My wife hates it when it gets too long, and if I'm not using beard oil to make it nice and soft, it just really pisses her off. So
she doesn't really care. I think her favorite look is when I have it kind of short on the sides, and then the beard's a little bit longer, but not too terribly long. But she doesn't really care. So
time of year for beards.
Yeah, it's beard season.
Yeah.
You put a little oil in it when it gets bushy, and
no, it is what it is. The oil it doesn't really help it much.
Just naturally comes in.
It's like copper wire is what it feels like.
It is.
SOS pad.
Well, my thing I notice when it gets long, so when I wake up in the morning and then if I'm looking at my phone for something, if it's too long here and then I'm kind of doing that thing, and then I go in the mirror and I have all this red. It looks like somebody was just using like a sandpaper on my leg. So you gotta maintaining is the biggest problem. But some guys take it a little too seriously. But.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And the neck hair. It's like when I was a whole lot younger, like I never had to worry about like neck hair, especially on the back. But like once you start shaving your neck front and back, it's like you've reached a certain point in your life. It's like things get more difficult.
With age, hair starts growing like in weird places and faster.
Which you would think would be the opposite. You would think it would be like that when you're younger, and then as you get older, it doesn't grow anymore. Right. But it's crazy.
Stops growing on your head and starts growing out everywhere else.
Yeah, the back of your arms. I hate that. The tricep hair.
Oh yeah.
I'm a relatively hairless guy. Not a lot on the chest. I don't know. My mom didn't breastfeed me as a kid, so I think that has
You're malnutrition.
Man, that's good stuff.
I got some theories.
Yeah.
We want to jump right in with we were talking before we went on. We got George and Alan back here, but I know one of your all-time favorites as well, Randy Travis, who you've become friends with, and just amazing stuff that you've done with him, working with him. You posted some stuff recently on socials, and what's that like? Because he's another guy that we kind of grew up. That was one of the main voices of country that we kind of grew up with. And then maybe when we got into high school is right when you kind of kicked off. But prior to that, a guy like Randy Travis, that must be incredible to work with somebody like that.
It is. And every day I just count my blessings, for being able to kind of rub elbows with my heroes like Randy and John and different ones, and just having the opportunity to meet some of my heroes that I never really got to be friends with, is just incredible because most people never get to meet their heroes. I mean, it's they see them on TV or they hear them on the radio, they have their records, but they don't ever get the opportunity to meet their heroes. And so for me to and obviously I'm in the same business, but for me to not only just meet them, but to become friends with them and for them to view me as a peer. I mean, it's just, it's incredible. I mean, and especially at this point, when I look back and think that I've been friends with John Anderson now for basically 20 years. I've been friends with Randy almost that long. And I've been able to do some incredible things with both of those guys. And so God's really blessed me to be able to kind of, just have a relationship with those guys. My bus driver introduced me to something that I didn't even know existed last week. It was from 1991, and he claims that it was from HBO or something, but I don't know what network had it, but it was called Influences, and it was basically, and I don't know how many of them they did, but the one that he told me about was George Jones and Randy Travis.
Yeah.
And it was basically the equivalent of what Randy and I did on the CMT cross country thing years ago. And I mean, I had tears in my eyes watching that, because it was like, it was Randy doing the same thing that I did with him, you know, but it was Randy doing that with his hero. And so it's just, you know, you think about, will the circle be unbroken? And I think that's the most important thing that we're lacking in country music right now, is that respect for the artists that came before us. You know, everybody wants to be a star, everybody wants to make a name for themselves, everybody wants to have hits and all this stuff. And when it serves them, you know, in certain moments, they start dropping the Merle Haggards and the George Jones and Straits and Alan Jackson, you know, all those names, when it serves them well. But, you know, when nobody's looking, they probably couldn't tell you, you know, half of the, you know, what the songs that those artists sang.
Thank you.
I mean, I've been in writing sessions where I made an Ernest Tubb reference, and they looked at me like, who? You know, and it's just, and I don't expect everybody to have the same knowledge that I have of country music. That's not what I'm saying, but to come into this town and just, I mean, it would be like a baseball player, you know, playing baseball at the major league level and not knowing who Babe Ruth or Roger Maris or Lou Gehrig is, you know, or Hank Aaron or whoever it may be. It's just unheard of. Like baseball players, you know, athletes, they know the heroes that were in their sport before they came along. And so you just don't see much of that in country music anymore.
It's funny that you bring up the influences, because I actually wrote an article about that exact video last week, I think it was, or the week before. And funny that you mentioned Randy and you, because that's exactly where my mind went to. And I was like, oh, George Jones did this with Randy Travis in '91, I think it was. And then you come along and kind of are the next part of that chain. And Randy, it was just such a cool, it's cool that you say that, because I thought the same exact thing when I watched it.
And it's great.
Well, and in that video, you probably heard George talking about his heroes. You know, I mean, it even goes back to that. You know, where he was talking about Roy Acuff and Lefty Frizzell and different ones. And you know, those guys didn't do a lot of TV, obviously, just because of the time period they were in. But you know, everybody's influenced by somebody, and so you know that's what keeps that ball rolling and keeps that tradition going.
I love that you brought up sports as a comparison, because a lot of times kind of the way we started Whiskey Riff to begin with was, we're always fans. We never call ourselves journalists, but we want to create, we want to entertain, we want to inform, we want to do all these things and have a good time. And for us, it was always this like glaring thing where it was country music, the fandom is so powerful, but then a lot of it is just opportunity based, where an artist just comes along and knows, well, maybe I'm not good enough to be in the pop world as far as like a superstar status. I'll just go try it in Nashville. I'll just drop a Merle in a song. And we get so frustrated hearing that. Look, I'm not going to pretend that I grew up listening to Merle. I grew up as a 90s country guy. So I grew up listening to these guys. And then right when I got into high school, guys like yourself, Dirk Bentley, that kind of started at the same time. It's just refreshing to hear the way you say it, and it doesn't come off as like demeaning at all to the artists that do that, but it's just the fact. So many come there, don't have any idea probably, let alone, you're talking about the legends, let alone, I don't even know if they would know stuff from 20 years ago a lot of the time. We've had people in, you know, that have been here, that have come to the office that we've met, that are currently working in Nashville with big names on big labels, who don't know who a guy like Tyler Childers is, and we're just like, how is that possible? Like, that you don't know the best traditional artists out there currently, let alone, you know, it's pretty shocking. But it seems like you're in a good place mentally where you don't let it frustrate you. Because I could see a younger artist who is traditional getting annoyed with success of a guy or girl who's like kind of just trying to like leverage a situation potentially. But it sounds like your career speaks for itself with the type of music you put out. I think you kind of stuck to your
well, and I came up in a I don't want to say weird. That's the first word that comes to my mind. It's like the generation that I came up in, you know, I could see both sides very clearly. I could see, you know, the older established artists being pushed aside. Some of them would have a great attitude about it. They would live with purpose and do their career, you know, conduct themselves and their career in a great way. And then others would get real bitter about it, and they'd say, "Oh, you know, everything out there on the radio now is crap." You know, it's like, well, you know, unless you're listening to all of it, you know, you can't really say that. You know. And then I've seen the younger artists come up. Some would have an appreciation for the older artists, some wouldn't. And so, you know, there's flaws on both sides, I think. And so I've been very blessed to be able to just continue to make my kind of music. You know, there's been things in my career that didn't go the way I wanted it to go, but I can't control everything, and I can only do so much. And I also realize too that because of the choices that I've made on how I live my life and the material that I choose to put out, you know, I feel like that's caused me to kind of miss out on some success. But if I had it to do over again, I'd probably do it the same way, because I can lay my head on my pillow at night and know that I followed my heart. I wasn't doing it just to, you know, get more ads or more spins or, you know, whatever, to win awards or whatever. And so, I mean, when I look back on my career, I don't really have any regrets. I don't feel like I've, you know, made some god awful choice that's caused me to miss out on certain things. The reason I've missed out on certain things is because I've made choices that were near and dear to my heart. And, you know, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. So.
Not at all.
Was part of making this Country State of Mind record a little bit of like, I want to bring a spotlight to some of these older artists and some of my heroes, or was it more personal, or was it, I mean, maybe both a little bit?
Well, the idea was kind of birthed out of a conversation that I had with my manager last summer of 2019. We were talking about how a lot of the younger fans were starting to discover the 80s and 90s country music for the first time. Yeah. And he was like, you know, you'd be the perfect person to kind of cater to that. And I said, well, yeah, but, you know, I'm such a student of country music that I'd like to take it a step further. And so that's basically what I did. We wanted to kind of speak to that rediscovery, so to speak, but at the same time, you know, my taste and my interest aren't confined to the 80s and 90s only. So this record basically spans from the early 50s all the way up to the 2000s. And it was more tricky the more current I got, because it was like, you know, the material that kind of fit this project it kind of got few and far between. But I ended up kind of finding stuff like, you know, You Don't Seem to Miss Me and Desperately and stuff like that, you know, were more current, but they fit that mold.
Well, I also think you did a good job of picking songs that might not necessarily be like that artist, like #1 go-to, like first song you think of when you think of, you know, Alan Jackson or John Anderson or stuff like that.
Yeah, I think that's key too. The resurgence of, it's been really interesting for us to see. You mentioned like the 80s and 90s and the young people kind of like realizing it again. So we went through that terrible like road country phase probably that you weren't a big fan of, I assume. And it's nice to now come out the other end and see some guys like a Luke Combs, who's a young guy, but definitely has a sound that's familiar to people that like country music and real country music. Takes you back maybe to the 90s. From the outside looking in at maybe you know some of these artists, maybe you don't. Are you a little bit relieved or a little bit happy to see that kind of resurgence happen again?
Yeah, and you know, and I've had people say, "Oh, you know, it's always going to come back around." And I was like, "Well, when it does, it's not going to be the same as it was before. You know, it's going to be kind of a different look and a different sound and all of that." And yeah, I'm always glad to see artists like that. I mean, that's why I picked, you know, artists like Chris Jansen, Runaway June, Maddie and Tay for this record, because they're young, they're new, they're fresh, but at the same time, they love country music. and they're talented. They appreciate what came before them. And they're just respectful towards, other artists, and it's not like they're in this just for them. They're looking out for number one kind of thing. And so I've always kind of gravitated towards those kinds of artists. And yeah, I mean, it's good to see, that resurgence of artists that kind of have a good head on their shoulders, and they're not just trying to, chase some kind of fame or a trend or whatever. I mean, I don't even think I had anything out on the radio during that bro country thing. I was still trying to get through some tough stuff. I think I went like 5 years without putting out a record. It was kind of the bro country phase kind of happened between my punching bag record and my Deep South record. And I had changed producers, and there was a merger that happened at my label, and I put out a book, and all kinds of stuff happened during that 5 years. But during that 5 years, I'm thinking, okay, how can I put something out, during this time period with everything going on at radio and still be relevant? And so, so my label came to me and said, we want something that's just fun and, tempo and energetic. And we're like, well, that's easy, so I went and I found a couple of songs. One was called Bench Seat that never ended up on the record because it got beat out by a song called All About You. And so we wanted to go to radio with that, but the promotion team wanted to release Hometown Girl. And I'm thinking, that's like so not what they said they wanted, but they felt like it was going to be a hit. And I was like, well, okay. It was unanimous. All the regional reps, everybody, was in agreement. And I was like, okay. So they went with it and got a number one out of it. So, it was proof to me that nobody really knows what's going to be hot at any given moment. You just kind of have to follow your heart and see what's on the record and see what kind of resonates with fans and radio and all that. So it's in some ways, I hate to say it, it's a guessing game.
Yeah. I mean, it seems like that from our experience talking to some people at labels when they're kind of fishing around for what should be the single. A lot of times we see a single, we're just smashing our head against the wall, being, how could that artist release that song, knowing like what else is there to choose from. So, but the business side of it, it's like the growth side that we don't actually live in Nashville, so it's like it's really nice for us to kind of be separated from that world, because it's just the politics and just the nonsense that goes on is just mentally draining. And I imagine it's similar. And like your 17 years ago was your debut single, Long Black Train. It's a quick 17 years, I bet it feels like for you. And I was looking at every single you ever released, and I was like, I would put the last 17 years of singles you released against anybody. Like literally, like just the kids these days call them heaters, right? So they're just like you just got great songs like from 2003 all the way through. And that's why whenever you're going to release a project like you did now with Country State of Mind, I know it's going to be great. You're a guy that it's just a steady, I know exactly what I'm going to get. And it's just like so nice as a country fan to kind of get that. Random questions though, speaking about when you started with the first single in the debut record label, the whole Josh thing was a funny thing that's on.
Jake Owen changing his name from Josh to Jake, his like stage name essentially, because of you and Josh Grayson, and like there's too many Joshes.
Have you heard of it?
Are you familiar with that?
It's a Wikipedia story. We don't know if it's true or not, but that just seems like the business of country. I could see that happening, right?
It didn't come from not Jake Owen, did it?
No, I think it was like, I think the basic premise was like, we don't want too many Joshes out there. Yeah. And you were taken off, and they're like, change your name from Josh Owen to Jake Owen.
Jake's his middle name, I believe. So.
But is that not weird? That's such a, hearing that, I'm like, that can't surprise you if that actually happened in the country, just the way stuff goes, right?
Yeah, the name thing's always fascinated me. I mean, you got like Garth, where that's his middle name, and his first name is Troyle, And it's like, first of all, who names their child Troil? You know, and I think Toby Keith, there's some kind, I don't remember what his full name is, but
he
goes by Toby anyway. And, you know, you got Randy Travis. I mean, his given name was Randy Trawick. And so when he moved to town, they were like, you know, Trawick's not going to work. So he did a live record at, you know, the Nashville Palace, kind of a low budget thing before he really got a deal. And he went by Randy Ray for a little while. And then Evelyn Shriver at Warner Brothers said, you know, we need to do better than Randy Ray. And so she came up with Randy Travis, and it stuck. And I'd say it worked out pretty good for him. So, so luckily I haven't ever really had to worry about that. Josh Turner works pretty good. So
that's like the quintessential perfect, like
country name,
just like simple and just it works. You don't got to mess with it. Are you you're wearing a Braves hat? It looks like, I think I saw.
Yeah.
Are you a big Braves fan? I assume
I am.
When is the playoffs are going to have
host cities, right?
Right. We're Cubs fans here, so we'll see. We'll see what happens. But
yeah,
you're from South Carolina, so are you a big Clemson fan? We think we saw on your Instagram.
I am. Yeah. Yeah.
Trevor Lawrence, is he going to be the real deal in the NFL, or what do you think?
You never know.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of these guys, they go to the NFL and they either just take to it like a duck takes to water, or they're just completely you know, blindsided by how big of an adjustment it is. You know, Deshaun Watson has done great. So I think Trevor Lawrence will probably do equally as well, because he comes from that same culture, that same training, that same mindset, and they're both really talented, really smart. Looks like Trevor's going to be graduating early, just like Deshaun Watson did, which is incredible, because Deshaun, a lot of people don't realize, they're like, oh man, he left Clemson early. It's like, well, he did 4 years of school in 3 years and played, you know, at a very high level in football. So it's like not many people can do that. Right. So I think he'll probably do pretty good. He's probably needing to put on some weight, you know, before that happens though.
Yeah, I mean, north of the state line, there was a guy named Mitchell Trubisky who came out of North Carolina, and he's still having some trouble.
The Bears quarterback situation has always been hilarious.
I mean, it's 31 years of my life now. It's been a problem.
Yeah.
Well, now you got, like, people are thinking that, you know, like the Jets, like they got a tank so they can get Trevor Lawrence and all this stuff. So you got that talk going already. But yeah, it's exciting with it's weird though. Speaking of sports, with most places have no fans, COVID has been obviously caught everybody kind of by surprise in the entertainment world. How are you are you just like, when I can play again, I'm going to play again? Or are you kind of starting to like look around for some of these a lot of these shows you're seeing now, some of them are very acoustic style, spread out, people sitting at tables, so it's safe, or like a drive-in style, which to me, I don't want to pay $100 to go see Kane Brown pre-recorded video concert. To me, that sounds like stealing. So it's like, Blake Shelton did one, but like, where do you kind of see it playing out? I mean, a lot of it depends on, they're saying, a vaccine or whatever. Maybe next fall there's normal concerts again. This is just, who knows?
Well, I've played 4 shows, you know, since the shutdown happened, and so I've kind of gotten a good sense of kind of where we are, and you know, you get out away from the big cities. You know, everybody's just living their life. They're not giving a second thought to all this nonsense going on. And I'm not sitting here saying that, you know, COVID wasn't, you know, something that needed to be addressed and needed to be avoided and dealt with and all that. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but at this point, with what we know, you know, like I say, I've played shows out in the Midwest where they've been doing, you know, living their life the way they're living it for hundreds of years, and they know what works. They get outside, they work with their hands, they love on their family, and they do what they do. And if you know, bad things are going to happen regardless. And so, I've gone and I've played in these places. It's like, hey, we're going to have our county fair come hell or high water, and and they sought out an artist that would come play it, and so I was glad that I was able to go play it, and getting out there and just seeing people live their life that way was kind of refreshing. And I think I think we could all take a lesson from that, because we're not supposed to be living in fear. Fear can be healthy at times. It can keep us from danger. It can keep us out of trouble and all of that. But at a certain point, it's like, all right, we need to live our life and do what we're supposed to do. And so I see things kind of starting to ease up. I've done some shows where everybody was kind of socially distanced or whatever, but it's I don't know, the measures that I've seen taken, I don't feel like are really going to keep somebody from getting coronavirus. I think they do it to make themselves feel better and to not have a guilty conscience or something. But I don't know.
To avoid liability.
Well, yeah, and I think Joe's Bar here in Chicago, I saw a Rolling Stone with Ed, talking to Ed, the owner, who we've known for a long time, and he was kind of talking about, he's like, you can put all the stuff you want sort of in place. Like, you can do that, obviously, as a venue. You can do temperature checks, but it's like, he's like, it's almost impossible once like that kick drum hits to keep people from wanting to go to the front of the stage, to keep people from wanting to like get closer. You got a bunch of people drinking for who knows how long, how many hours prior or during, and it becomes almost like, how can any venue anywhere be expected to kind of maintain that?
I can't.
Yeah, it seems like very impossible.
That's why people came to this country to begin with, because they were being, persecuted, and they were being oppressed and held back, and they were having their freedoms taken from them. And so, I think we're starting to see that now. It's like people are starting to say enough is enough, and they're like, hey, if it's my body, if I want to catch coronavirus, let me catch coronavirus. It's like, it's a free country. And, so it's, I don't know, it's getting to be kind of weird out there, but I don't see anything wrong with going outside and playing a country music show. And if they need to space the chairs out a little bit for us to go do it, then hey, I'm all about it. So
for sure.
Do you see a timeline for when that'll kind of get back to normal, or is it just still?
No, it's hit or miss. Like I say, I played a show last month, like mid-August, out in Utah. I played a couple of shows in Missouri. I played one in Iowa. We've got several dates coming up. I'm playing one here in Tennessee coming up in a week or so. And then I had some California and Nevada dates, which I was like, they're going to move. And sure enough, I found out yesterday that they're needing to move. And so I just hate it for the fans. The fans are wanting entertainment again, and they've got all these people in a leadership position that are saying, nope, can't do it. And so the fans are like, well, I guess we'll have to wait a little bit longer, which it is what it is. But yeah, it's when you look at the financial hit that Nashville's taken from touring not happening over the past 6 months, it's starting to look ugly. I mean, everybody's taking a gut punch, and I'm not just talking about artists. I'm talking about musicians, crew guys, sound companies, audio companies, the bus companies, managers, business managers, booking agents. I mean, it's like a trickle down effect, and so there's so many people that are really hurting financially right now that something's going to have to change soon, or it's going to look really bad.
Yeah. Last question, because I think we're about at 30 minutes here. We love the album, The Country State of Mind. Are you already thinking about that next album? Or are you kind of just chilling out now? Is there anything on the horizon, a full original album? Or?
Well, the good thing about this shutdown is I've had more time to write, and so I've kind of been writing towards the next record. I'm not at liberty to say what kind of record it is. But it's good to be working towards something, you know, especially in this downtime when you're wondering, okay, when we're going to get back on the road. But yeah, it's been, like I say, it's been pretty consistent, and I'm very thankful that I have a label that's constantly looking for something from me. It just gives me something to work towards, and I just love being creative and love you know, giving my fans, you know, this product. And I mean, they're still raving over my gospel project that I put out 2 years ago. That
my mom loves
they'd been asking for that for years, and I finally was able to deliver it to them. So it was not only fun to just do a record like that, but we did a live performance DVD by way of the Gaithers, and that was just so much fun. It was such a pleasant experience. But we put it out on vinyl. This current record, Country State of Mind, is also out on vinyl. You know, so it's been pretty fun to be able to have all that stuff out there.
Yeah, we're excited for whatever you do next, and I'll speak for myself and I'll let Wes finish. But for me, it's you always get nervous for us, like when we talk to somebody that we grew up listening to, and I can just talking to you even for 30 short minutes here. It's really nice because you're exactly like I hoped you would be when I listen to your music, and then I hear you talk and how personable you are and kind of just how chill you are, and you just seem like a great dude, and we appreciate you taking the time. So for us too, it's like just a lot of people. It's all right.
I'm so sorry. Somebody's trying to call me.
But you're not. Thankfully, the industry doesn't seem like it affected you and like your vision of like what matters in life and in the world, and just kind of being a really easy guy to talk to. Just you'd be surprised how many times that's not the case. People we meet that are are in So thank you.
I would echo that completely, and also just say that Country State of Mind has been one of my favorite records this year. So bravo on that, and just keep doing what you're doing, man.
Yeah, we're always gonna share your music every time you put anything out. I mean, we love it. So if we love it, we're gonna share it.
Well, even really quick, just the acoustic things; those were awesome too. The
acoustic
videos,
those are amazing.
That was.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you know, it's funny, that whole thing with social media and all that kind of stuff, that fan interaction, especially early on after we just got shut down. It was it took some getting used to, because I've always kind of shunned that side of things, because I hate being on my phone and my computer and doing all the technological kind of stuff all the time. And I kind of came to a point to where I realized it's like, well, this is really the only way I can interact with my fans right now and give them, you know, entertainment. And so I started to embrace it and really kind of started learning some things and getting more comfortable with it. And now we're doing Zoom interviews instead of face-to-face and all this kind of stuff. It's just a world we live in, but you know, you do what you got to do. But I just want to say, you know, thank y'all for doing your research and for being fans, and you know, just you know, saying everything that y'all said. It makes me feel good. It's been a long journey for me. You know, I spent a lot of years even before I got a record deal trying to figure things out and trying to figure out, you know, where I was headed and all that. But you know, God's really blessed me with a great career, and I've been able to do what I love to do for a living and provide for my family and just build my fan base, you know, throughout the years. And I've just learned that, you know, the best way to do that is to treat people with respect and treat people like I want to be treated. And you know, because it's a small world, and this is really a small town, and you never know, you know, what kind of interactions you're going to have with those people, you know, in the future. So you got to be really careful how you treat people and things you say. And so I learned that from my parents and my grandparents, and, you know, those kinds of things are timeless, you know, lessons to learn. So.
Well said. Yeah. Thanks so much, man. Well, hopefully we can see you in person sometime soon.
Yeah, that'd be good.
At a show and
absolutely.
But thanks again, Josh. We really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Oh yeah. Absolutely. Appreciate it.
And see you guys.
All right. Y'all too.